Police Week continues in our nation's capital. This year, the names of 6 fallen Kentucky heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Memorial. Brianna Gilroy caught up with some of the families of the men to find out what this means to them.
A name on the wall.
I lost my son. My grandson lost his father.
Pride mixed with a lot of pain.
But every time you do this, it's just like more finality, and it's the end.
This week, 6 fallen Kentucky heroes are being honored in Washington, D.C. That includes Richmond police officer Daniel Ellis. The Ellis family says they plan on coming here tomorrow as a group to see Officer Ellis's name engraved on the wall. This morning, Officer Ellis's dad told us from his hotel room that this is all bittersweet.
A certain amount of hesitation. You want to be there, but you don't. So it's tough.
Fallen KSP trooper Eric Chrisman was also added to the wall this year.
I will protect those who need protection.
Near his name, his dad reads another engraving, Eric's own words.
Be the best I can be at everything. Never give less than my all.
All these families here have one terrible thing in common, but have found support in one another.
It helps because you see you're not in this alone. There's other widows out there. There's other families that have lost their loved ones.
And as Police Week continues, families say it's how these officers lived that made them heroes, not how they died. Covering the news in Washington, D.C., Brianna Gilroy, LEX 18 News.
Police Week in Washington, D.C. continues, where more than 100 fallen officers are being honored, including 6 men from Kentucky.
LEX 18's Brianna Gilroy catches up with the family of Richmond police officer Daniel Ellis for more on how he's being honored.
Tonight, 20,000 people will fill this grassy area near the Capitol for a candlelight vigil for all those fallen heroes. Family members say they expect it to be one of the most emotional things they do while they're here. Some families went sightseeing today to get their minds off some of the emotional events ahead. Today's rainy weather didn't keep dozens of people from walking the walls where thousands of fallen officers' names are engraved, including 6 new names of men from Kentucky. Loved ones etching a copy of the name to take with them and leaving behind flowers. Fallen Richmond police officer Daniel Ellis's name was added this year. From his hotel room, his dad tells us how much it means to see all this support.
You know you're in with people that can understand and sympathize truly how you feel. It's one thing to hear about tragedies, but to actually be with people that are feeling the exact same thing you feel makes it very much different.
And that vigil starts tonight at 8 o'clock. Covering the news in Washington, D.C. from the LEX 18 Mobile Newsroom. Back to you.
Tonight, thousands of people gathered on the Mall in Washington, D.C. to honor our fallen officers.
The names of more than 200 officers, including 6 from Kentucky, were read. LEX 18's Brianna Gilroy was there for the emotional ceremony.
The vigil was filled with family members of the fallen and officers in uniform, all paying tribute to officers killed in the line of duty. That includes Nicholasville police officer Burke Rhodes. Loved ones arrived by bus, greeted with a flower. We saw Kentucky State Troopers walking in honoring 3 of their fallen, and Nicholasville Police, here to remember Officer Burke Rhodes.
Law enforcement, unfortunately, is good at honoring the fallen. I think it's a good thing, but it's also painful.
Sergeant Scott Harvey is one of about a dozen officers from Nicholasville here to pay tribute and support Officer Rhodes' family.
Well, it's been emotional for Melissa, his wife, to see all the support from around the country. You know, she's had support from Nicholasville, but it's hard to get your head around. The whole country was affected by the loss of your husband.
Since arriving in D.C., the Rhodes family has also decorated the wall where the husband and father's name has been engraved.
His family has made wreaths and some photos and that kind of stuff, just some memorabilia, just so that the name on the wall is associated with a picture, with a story, with a family.
Logan Young, Eric Keith Chrisman, J. Karen Honman, Anson Blake Tribute, John H. Ashby, Clifton Hopkins Slayton, Burke Jevin Rhodes, Daniel Neal Ellis.
This is the 28th year for the Candlelight Vigil. It doesn't get any easier. But tonight, thousands came together as one law enforcement family.
It's the least we can do to honor the memory of our fallen officer, and we will do whatever we need to do to continue that.
Tomorrow might not be as emotional of a day for these families, as they'll go to a conference in the morning and then also have the option of going to a baseball game in the afternoon. Covering the news in Washington, D.C. from the LEX 18 Mobile Newsroom, back to you. It's another emotional day here at the National Police Officers Memorial. But each time we come, we find more familiar faces of family members and fellow officers from Kentucky. A family pays tribute. Katie Ellis and her son Luke kneel at the wall, tracing the name of fallen father and husband, Richmond officer Daniel Ellis. Across the memorial, Nicholasville police officers stopped to honor Officer Burke Rhodes.
We're just kind of sitting around talking, having some fellowship right now.
The names of 6 fallen heroes from Kentucky have been added to the wall this year. And while these heroes hail from different departments, Officer Grimes says they're all part of one law enforcement family.
Kentucky's very well represented here, and we've all kind of hung out and talked and laughed and cried and mourned, and so we're just trying to make it an eventful trip that we'll remember forever.
Kentucky also being represented through many volunteers who made this trip through an organization called Concerns of Police Survivors. Jerry Powell says their job is to make sure all these loved ones know they're not alone.
To know that they have support and that their loved one's not forgotten, and to help them through this time, it means a lot to them to know.
Helping them through the moments no one wants to have.
Is that his name up there?
Yeah. The next big event is tomorrow. That's the wreath laying ceremony at 11 o'clock. Covering the news in Washington, D.C. from the LEX 18 Mobile Newsroom, back to you.
We begin tonight with 6 fallen heroes from Kentucky being honored in Washington, D.C. for National Police Week. Along with the families of the fallen and fellow officers, a special group of volunteers from Kentucky also made the trip to make sure the survivors have support. LEX 18's Brianna Gilroy continues our coverage from the nation's capital.
Katie and Luke Ellis honoring their fallen hero this morning, finding the name of Richmond police officer Daniel Ellis on the National Police Officer Memorial. Just feet away, Nicholasville officers paid tribute to one of their own, fallen officer Burke Rhodes.
For most of it's our first time ever being here, and so we found Officer Rhodes' name, and we did some tracings and looked at the wreath that his wife put up this week.
But Police Week isn't just about walking these walls. It's also a time for families to come together and find support in their grief.
We want to give back.
Jerry Powell has been coming to Police Week for the past 20 years. He's a volunteer with the Kentucky chapter of Concerns of Police Survivors.
It's a more rewarding experience. While it's sad, while we're here, the feeling of helping out the families greatly surpasses anything you could imagine.
The organization helps families with the big things like counseling, while also remembering how much the little things matter.
We provide backpacks to the families that will have things that they may not think about taking to the memorial service. For example, it would be a suntan lotion. So as you're sitting out on the lawn, they're not getting burnt. Have some gum, mints, and stuff.
6 fallen Kentucky heroes were added to the wall this year, bringing more than 70 family members and dozens of officers from the Commonwealth to our nation's capital.
So we've never been to this event before, and I hope under these circumstances we never have to attend again.
A group of people bonded by tragedy beginning to heal together. Covering the news in Washington, D.C., Brianna Gilroy, LEX 18 News.
Just about 2 hours, a memorial ceremony will begin at the nation's capital to honor 252 fallen officers, including 6 fallen officers here in Kentucky. LEX 18's Brianna Gilroy joins us live from the nation's capital to continue our Police Week coverage. Brianna, good morning to you.
Today is Police Officers Memorial Day, and an estimated 4,000 people are expected to attend a ceremony here at the Capitol this morning to honor all those fallen officers, including 6 men from Kentucky. Today's ceremony at the Capitol isn't far from the Law Enforcement Memorial, where many of the families have been spending a lot of their time. Today's ceremony is the last big event here at Police Week. It will include several speakers and music. The officers being honored here from Kentucky include Troopers Eric Chrisman, Blake Tribby, and Cameron Ponder, Nicholasville Officer Burke Rhodes, and Richmond Officer Daniel Ellis. Officer Ellis's cousin Hannah will be performing a song here today that she wrote herself called Officer Down. Officer Ellis's dad told us what the special tribute means to them.
I couldn't listen to the whole song at first. It took me a few weeks, but after I finally could listen to it, it's just special.
Many of the families are expected to arrive around 10 o'clock. This ceremony starts at 11, will go until about 2:30, and we'll have a lot more coming up tonight on LEX 18 News. For now, we're covering the news live in Washington, D.C. from the LEX 18 Mobile Newsroom. Back to you.
An estimated 4,000 people gathered on Capitol Hill today for a memorial ceremony wrapping up National Police Week. More than 100 fallen officers were honored in the ceremony, including 6 men from Kentucky. LEX 18's Brianna Gilroy was at the event. She continues our coverage from Washington, D.C.
Hundreds of uniformed officers line the walkway for the families of the fallen. More than 100 officers were honored during today's ceremony on Capitol Hill, including State Troopers Cameron Ponder, Blake Tribby, and Eric Chrisman, Lieutenant Clifford Travis, Nicholasville Police Officer Burke Rhodes, and Richmond Officer Daniel Ellis.
It's pretty humble to sit here and watch all the sacrifices that people have made and across the country, including our own state.
Miles of cars full of people with nothing to say.
Hannah Ellis, Officer Ellis's cousin, performed a song she wrote from the perspective of his wife, Katie.
Call me on a cell phone telling me there's an officer down.
Lyrics about a loss all these families can relate to.
The song, Officer Down, that was very touching. It was just very nice.
Kentucky, Eric K. Chrisman.
The names of the fallen were read aloud. Family members placed a flower for their loved ones in a wreath.
Daniel N. Ellis.
It was tough. It's as I walked up, I had one of the gentlemen helping us up. He said, "Just take deep breaths," because it certainly gets teary-eyed.
Today's memorial service was the last major event for Police Week, but these families say they'll continue to honor their heroes when they get back home to Kentucky.
We're very thankful, and we actually still have some events at home, local events for the state police and the Kentucky Law Enforcement Memorial Wall will have their event next week too. So we have a few more events that we get to honor our heroes at. So we're looking forward to it.
Because even though they're gone, these heroes will never be forgotten. Covering the news in Washington, D.C., Brianna Gilroy, LEX 18 News.